This week's Parashat Metzorah, starts off with the purification process for the Metzorah, the guy who got tzara'at. So last week we spoke about tzara'at and this affliction that you get. Primarily, Chazal says for speaking Lashon Hara, and it comes in the skin. The guy's been kicked out of the camps, and he's quarantined. He's all by himself outside, and now eventually it becomes time for it to become pure, to become healed, and to come back into the camp of the Jewish people. And the Kohen goes out to see him and checks out the nega, and once it starts to heal, it's time to go through the purification process. So what does the Kohen have him do? The Kohen has him bring shtei tzipurim. He has to bring 2 birds, healthy birds, kosher birds, and then there's an etz erez, ushni tola'at ve'ezov. You're going to have yourself the cedar wood, the crimson thread, and the hyssop. The cedar symbolizing the haughty, strong tree, and the hyssop, the lowly, humble tree. And we're trying to teach this guy who spoke Lashon Hara a little bit about proper midot. So we're taking the haughty with the humble, putting it together. And Rashi brings down all this symbolism for what everything stands for. And there's also a little bit of Pesach connection over there about the Korban Pesach, but that's for you to look into on your own about how the Ezov and all this different process relates to Korban Pesach. But I want to talk about the birds. So what's the deal with the birds? We have 2 birds. So comes along Rashi, and Rashi says, why do we have 2 birds? Because what do birds symbolize? Birds symbolize tweeting. They're constantly mitzaftzefim, they're constantly chirping. They're tweeting around. And when the birds are chirping, that kind of reminds us of the chitter-chatter of Lashon Hara. So the bird is like the perfect symbolism for the speaker, the person who's speaking nonstop. And he's speaking, in our case, Lashon Hara. So they become the symbol for Lashon Hara. Now, we have 2 birds. Why 2 birds? One bird is going to get slaughtered. And with that blood, there's going to be 7 sprinklings. We're going to be dipping things, mixing with water, dipping things together. That's going to be one bird gets slaughtered. And the other bird gets taken out to the field. You're going to take the living bird and let it loose onto the sadeh, onto the field. So the question the Achronim ask is, why are there 2 birds? Why is one killed? Why does one live? Like, what's going on over here? So the simple explanation that's brought down is that, okay, the guy spoke Lashon Hara, he spoke evil things. So what are we going to do? We have to kill him. We got to get rid of that evil Lashon Hara. So one bird gets killed. Why? To symbolize you can't speak Lashon Hara. But you might mistakenly think that now that I can't speak Lashon Hara, so what am I ever going to speak? I can never speak again. Like, what am I going to do? How can I talk? And before anybody starts reading the laws of Lashon Hara, it's kind of scary. I can't learn those laws, because once I learn those laws, I can never speak. And there's a famous story about the Chavetz Chaim, who wrote all the halachot of the Chavetz Chaim, Shmirat HaLashon, of what to say, what not to say. They said he was a big talker. He schmoozed with people, he spoke to people, but he spoke proper things. So what's the idea of the second living bird that gets sent away? That second bird symbolizes good speech, that you can't never talk. You have to also know when to speak. There's times not to speak, and there's times to speak. And there's when you learn Torah, when you're teaching Torah, when you're asking what people are doing, when there's business things, there's good kosher talk, and there's non-kosher talk. But don't think that you can never speak again. So we kill one bird, and we let the second bird live to symbolize when do you have to have that good speech, because the good tzipor, this is the living tzipor, is going to symbolize positive speech. It's interesting, just we have the word tzipor. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu, who's the most humble of humble, the greatest leader of the Jewish people, he also had a little bit of an issue speaking. So I heard a beautiful Dvar Torah, that if Moshe had a problem speaking, it was kvad peh, kvad lashon, so who does he have to marry? He has to marry Tzipora. Tzipora meaning the bird. His wife's name was Tzipora, symbolizing the bird, because she would do that extra positive speech that we would need, and that combo together is going to make for the perfect leadership of the Jewish people. Okay, so that's a simple reading of the 2 birds, one bird for speech and one bird for not speaking. Okay, awesome. Comes along the Ramban, and the Ramban says something very, very deep, and I'm still trying to look into it and try to find some deeper ideas on it, but let's just read the Ramban real quick. Says the Ramban, so he's quoting going the pasuk that says you take the living bird and you send him off to the sadeh. So he brings down some of the halachot over there, that it has to dafka be onto a field, and it can't be next to the water, it can't be next to populated peoples. It has to really be out by the sadeh. So says the Ramban, V'im ken, if these halachot are true, yeh hatam kesod ha'se'ir mishtaleach. He says, if this is true, then these two birds is going to be similar to the secret of the Seir HaMishtaleach. The Seir HaMishtaleach is the scapegoat. On Yom Kippur, we have two goats. One goat that goes LaHashem, and one goat that goes LaAzazel. And says the Ramban, V'sham Mishtaleach LaAzazel, and by the goats, the Seir, we send one to Azazel, Hamidbarat, into the desert. Ukan, Laporchot HaSadeh. And here with the bird, we're throwing it off the sadeh. So the sadeh and like the midbar, it's like this middle of nowhere places, and that's kind of like a similar halacha, and they could probably kind of share some kind of secret over here. So what's fascinating about the Ramban is that it's totally different from the first explanation. Because according to the first explanation, the bad bird is the bad lashon hara, that's the one that we kill, and the good bird is the good speech, that was the one that we send out onto the sadeh. That's where we're supposed to speak. But according to the Ramban, it's opposite. The bird that you kill, that you do shchita with, that corresponds to the goat that's LaHashem, that you do shchita with. But the bird that you send out to the field, that corresponds to the Seir LaAzazel, the goat that you send off to Azazel. So that bird is like the negative bird. So the bird that flies away free, that becomes the negative one. And if you just look at the whole service of the blood, you have the, when on Yom Kippur we go achat, we have the one on top, the 7 below, we have the 7, we have over here again, the 7 dippings with the blood by the bird over here. They have to have 2 birds, just like you have to have the 2 goats. You're sending them off into the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of comparisons between the two. There's probably a lot of really deep stuff happening between the two. We know the Seir Mishtaleach, the Azazel reminds us of Esav in certain kind of ways. Read Ramban over there. Here we have the Sadeh. Esav was the Isha Sadeh. So I'm not really sure how deep to go with this and what it's really all about. But there are deep stuff happening over here comparing these two. And it's interesting that according to the Ramban and the Sod, it will be the exact opposite explanation. I heard one more explanation to these two birds, that actually both birds are supposed to bring kapara for speech. Both birds are supposed to bring atonement for the speech. The first bird that you were killing, it's like we said originally, we're killing that bird to kill the bad lashon hara. But the second bird that lives, which symbolizes speech that we have to do, is coming to bring tshuva for all the speech we should have done. And according to this explanation, we need to speak. We need to teach Torah. We need to give chizuk to each other. We have to give a good smile and a good compliment and help out our friends through speech. The bird that lives is not coming to remind us that we have to do good speech, but it's actually coming to bring atonement for all the good speech that we didn't do. Bezrat Hashem, a couple of lessons over here. Maybe we can internalize a little bit to work on our speech and maybe look into a little bit of these deeper ideas of the two birds. Shabbat Shalom.